It is now producing a really strong effect so you can achieve flight for a spacecraft. That's, let's say, that's more complicated engineering and requires a much bigger budget, but you can do these experiments for as little as like $200. You can see for yourself that we are now in the age of gravity modification. We can now alter gravitational fields directly using electromagnetic fields. So, and this comes from a theory that I have been developing since about 1986. I first presented the first papers on this at an American Physical Society meeting. So anyway, folks, you guys can do this too. It's not that hard. Now, I don't want anybody doing the, you gotta pay attention to details. I mean, you got to use Gallistan electric metal contacts so that the force, the bolts don't, the wires don't affect things, wire forces. When you're doing the balloon experiments, you have to use nice fine wires so that the weight of the wire to the coils is a very tiny fraction of the weight of the actual armatures, little motor armatures. You got to get the thinnest wires you can and run about 11 volts AC at 400 hertz down there. And you got to be careful. I don't want anybody making junk and then saying, oh, it doesn't work. We've already seen that. I'm going to publish detailed plans for doing these experiments, and I want people to follow them in detail. And they will see the effects I saw, because it's just physics. Nikola Tesla apparently discovered these effects. And that was part of what the government confiscated when he died. They came in and took everything out of his apartment. And he at the time was talking about doing unified field theory, like Einstein. He was playing one-upsmanship with Einstein. So this can be done by anybody. And it was probably first discovered by Nikola Tesla. The history of it is that Einstein was then talking about unified field theories. The Germans picked up this in World War II. They apparently had something operating, this Glock or Bell experiments, and but they apparently couldn't power it. I mean, it takes to actually lift the weight of something takes a lot of power proportional to the weight of it. So they couldn't develop a portable power source for it. But the U.S. government has apparently solved that problem. So good for the U.S. government. And the U.S. government, like I said, they called me up, said, we want you to publish. So I have been doing so. Now, the rest of this is your guys' problem. You have to figure out, you have to follow directions and do this stuff like I described it, and it will work. So that's really what I'm saying. Now we're going to see our own flying saucers, and the chemical rocket will no longer be what we use to get to Mars. It'll probably be a nuclear-powered flying saucer, like from Forbidden Planet, one of my favorite movies. So that's our future. We're going to have this technology, and imagine like people who have been badly burned in accidents, that they can be levitated over their hospital beds so their skin can heal better. And a lot of good things will happen because of this technology. And you guys who figure out how to levitate stuff with this physical effect will get rich. So, them's my words. I'll be free to answer any questions you have. What do you say, Steve?
I'm back. Well, I believe that they've had this.
There you are.
They've had this technology since about. They've had this technology since about 2000, at least.
Yeah,
probably
right.
In the 1990s and that. But
Yep.
I know when I was going to college, early 1990s, and when I was a student at the University of Colorado, and the Air Force used to take us around on these tours and everything. They had out these posters, which was Air Force 2001, and it had the picture of the Aurora and everything. And of course, I handed those out, and it comes back to me about a month later and said, "Hey, what did you do with those posters and everything?" I said, "Well, I gave them mine." I said, "Oh, well, those were classified. We weren't supposed to do that."
Oh my, yeah. Well,
So I have always believed, since about, well, for sure, since they exited from the space program, okay, and they kind of broke away from NASA pretty much, and got rid of the space shuttle. I have believed that they've been getting out in space through other means, and not with the Russians,
yes.
And it's what you call foregone conclusion, based on facts. Anyway, let me bring up one of my colleagues here.
Sure.
Ernie, and he had a couple questions.
Good to hear your presentation and see that DARPA and whatnot's allowing more of this technology to come out.
Yes.
I love it. And I love even more to hear that you will be at the Teslatech 2026. And look forward
to have a demonstration. Yeah, I hope to have a demonstration set up on a table.
Me too. And I look forward to seeing what you got and what everyone will be showing, and how this anti-gravity technology is so much more than just that, and actual live demos of how real it is.
Well, once space-time geometry, crypto. that was Superman's dog, right? Crypto, crypto alchemist. Okay,
I love that.
I'm sorry, Bernie.
All good, my friend.
Bernie, when we're changing gravity with electromagnetism, which we can do, we are changing space-time geometry. We're bending space-time using electromagnetism directly.
Absolutely. But so I got a question for you in regards to that.
Yes.
If you're not able to create the full warp bubble or like field around yourself traveling through the bent space-time, is there then a time radiation that affects the body if not done right? What are your opinions on that?
I would be very careful. By the time you start trying to levitate things, you're creating, I think, some pretty strong electromagnetic fields that are AC, and we know that that can be quite dangerous. So you have to be very careful. The demonstration I intend to show at the Tesla conference is going to be, just low voltage with a weak
Absolutely.
effect, just enough to show up on a, just we're talking changes of milligrams of, like part per, maybe changes of about 1% on a mass. But you could see that if it's dangled beneath a balloon, you can see it, and or if it's on a
Absolutely.
good chemical scale. Now,
And
now, now,
it's a
you're talking
scalable.
also, Bernie, is it scalable? Yes,
Yeah,
but
I'm
I
saying
don't know.
that's what I'm stating. It is scalable, exactly, right? And uh,
Yes,
before I continue, just in reference to my own work, it's like with electrolysis, hydrogen, and stuff like that. I only do 5 volts, where when you step it up, it's scalable and lots more happens, but then you're at risk of a lot more radiation out of it. So you just use the bare minimums when getting into it as demonstration. And then when
yes,
you put more into it, you conduct it under controlled, safe environments, right? And it's just showing the proof of
right.
concept and that there are risks around it, but you engineer around it when developing it, sort of thing, right?
Exactly, Bernie. You have to be careful about this. Don't just wear a tinfoil hat to keep out the microwaves. You got you got to wear a whole
Lead
tinfoil
suit
suit.
and sometimes, well, a lead suit underneath the
Lead
tinfoil
suit, yeah,
suit,
that
and sometimes that just isn't enough, and you just have to be physically away, a distance out
oh,
just
oh
away from it, because you don't know what's going to happen and be coming out of it, and that's experimenting safely.
the these stories, and these are just reports. We don't know how especially in detail how what they are, but they said the Germans did these experiments in World War II, trying to develop their own flying saucer, basically. And obviously, they were not successful because, you know, they didn't win the war, right? And but what happened was they were taking Tesla fields and imposing them on Mercury. And of course, and they're doing this down in tunnels, secret underground facilities, so that everybody, what happens when you stir mercury with Tesla fields, it gets hot and it starts making mercury vapor. So a lot of the
Right, and
technicians were
that will
not as
kill
bad.
you. That kills you. And then when it's in the plasma ionized state, there's also possibilities and reports of actual radiation and
Yes,
nuclear reactions that happen. And it's like that stuff's all classified if it was replicated by the government, but they did it. And it's also why lots of ancient alchemists died when doing these sort of things, as they didn't understand that they were radiating themselves. And it also
this is
happened
it.
to.
This is Bernie. That's good. You're paying very careful attention to the literature and the reports about this. Don't
Absolutely.
take any unnecessary risks. Um, they said that the we're talking experiments done by the Waffen SS during World War II, and
Exactly.
they
Right.
had what they euphemistically called a high turnover of scientists and engineers working on this project. In other words, a lot of them died or went crazy, and when they were done,
And the
when the
crazy
Russians
part, when they go crazy,
started,
it's heavy metal poisoning, right? It's like
right.
they
I
got
mean, they were mad as hatters.
exactly, and it also justifies and vindicates, rest in his soul, Martin Fleischmann and his cold fusion, and that he got radiated and got cancered and died out of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And it's a real danger. I myself created radiation when I first started experimenting with this stuff 12 years ago. I got extremely sick, realized what was going on, and then I set thresholds that I never crossed because I know how to do it, but I didn't want to kill myself, right?
Good, Bernie. You look healthy. That's good. And I knew two guys who were doing rotating Tesla fields at microwave frequencies. And shortly after I saw their rotating plasmas that they were making, they both ended up in the hospital. I was
Yeah,
fortunately I just saw one experiment in the lab. It was very impressive. And I said, I'd been sent there by my superiors at Lawrence Livermore National Lab to look at what they were doing. And I said it looked very interesting. Then so I reported back after seeing, one experiment. And then I found out later they both ended up in the hospital. One of them died within a few months because they were irradiating themselves with something.
right.
So you
So
got to be really
literally my
careful
next
about this stuff.
experiments are combining exactly those things, but that I'm going to be doing them out in the country, out in farmers' fields, and it's like in the grass, away from everything, and that we'll be able to record
Good.
and see if all the grass dies around it and stuff and what happens. But it's out in the middle of nowhere, and the only life that's will be affected is the grass and vegetation, and able to measure it essentially in that way of if how harmful it is, what the effects are, and not risking ourselves
Sure.
when combining those forces. And that I've held
Well,
off doing this for 10 years until it's like in the right controlled environment. And yeah, that's what we'll be doing here in the springtime.
Uh,
I would also advise don't use any mercury. Use gallon stand.
No,
You know,
no, no, right? So I'm gonna start with like silver, copper, gold, tungsten, and maybe
yeah,
bismuth.
use
And
inert metals
yeah,
that
yeah.
don't drive people crazy. The other
And
terrible story I heard was that the guy in charge of the SS, who they regard this as their highest priority secret project during World War II, even higher priority than like the V2 or the V1. And when the German the Nazi Reich was collapsing, he had all of his engineers and scientists write him a big report and hand it into him. Then he had them all taken out by the SS and massacred. And he then traded the report for some plane tickets for himself and his family to
for his
Argentina.
inclusion to Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, yes, it got paper clipped. So that's where this government apparently got a hold of this technology. And the Russians, not the Russians, the Russians apparently found out about it and did their own experiments and were able to catch up. But what the secret apparently is that you have to have a very high power, a very low mass but very high power source of electrical energy, like rotating Tesla fields, polyphase. You have to have like a turbo alternator, run by
Question:
gas turbine.
is that essentially what the Philadelphia experiment was doing, but more stepped up? So along those lines, or is that different?
Yeah, I tend to think the Philadelphia experiment was. I think that was different than this. I think the Philadelphia experiment was one of these accidental discoveries, which unfortunately cost the lives of several sailors
And when they
because
fused together,
they
right?
did not expect. Yeah, they didn't. Tesla just wanted to mount a bunch of Tesla coils basically on a ship to create a plasma sheath around it so it couldn't be detected on radar, which works. And
Right, but
but
a
when
full
they turned on
plasma in,
Tesla,
right, when you get a full plasma like bubble created in field, that's then it's transcending time space essentially at that point, and then it's like then that's how it had those effects, and then how they fused together coming through or something, right?
yeah, I don't know. I decided to avoid doing any such experiments because I didn't want to end up embedded in the wall. You know,
Right, exactly.
there's a science
But
fiction movie.
it's evidence that when you're deconstructing matter slash going through space, it's also time, right? So that it's like
Right.
they're fabric together, so that this when you get through that barrier, you're literally dealing with actual time as in relation proportion to the space that you're going through, and there's all sorts of different effects that weren't expected, and more it's real basically, right? And there's a lot to it.
Well, what it's interesting you should mention real. Um, the theory I've tried to do, well, let's put it this way. If you use this effect, you can make the effective mass of something go to become very tiny and even push it below zero, so it's negative. But imagine that you can put a twist on space-time and make it imaginary. And then
Yeah.
you have warp drive. Then you have, if you bending space-time, that gives you anti-gravity. Being able to turn space-time into a pretzel, you know, so you have full control, that gives you warp drive.
I comprehend what you're saying, and I get it, and it's uh, the future is looking promising, and that
Yes, it is.
well, it's time space, and that there's potentially been these different discoveries at different points throughout humans' history, so that
Yes.
who knows where in time they went, and who knows where in time we're gonna go as we go forward.
Who knows? Who
Well,
knows?
I like to remind everyone.
Everything's on the table now for us.
I like to remind
What's
everyone
that?
there that I like to remind everybody that anytime you have an open spark, you have extreme ultraviolet coming out of that thing. You know, stream rays, and that's what's going to.
Absolutely.
And be a Tesla coil, a small tabletop model, even. But like I say, anytime you have an open spark, it's just throwing off things. And look at our big coil builders like Bill Weishaupt, Robert Golka. They're no longer with us, And I myself am sensitive. Like when I can run those things, I can feel them, and
Oh,
I can
big time, right? Absolutely. And
Oh,
when you get a certain EM field, you start, there's time dilation in small levels in a certain relation to that area that lots of individuals have experienced doing these experiments recently.
yeah.
I tell you a funny story. We had a project from the Air Force to make ball lightning for them, and we finally made it as big as soccer balls. One of the things we were told was you can't call it ball lightning. Don't ever call it ball lightning if you want to keep getting funding from us. So we called it Pia after Pia Zadora, who is the Italian starlet back in the 70s. Steve will remember her. So anyway, persistent ionization in air. But anyway, we were finally so successful. We were making this stuff as big as soccer balls. And we'd done our experiments in a microwave oven, and then we built a bigger one to do industrial microwaves at 915 megahertz. And that was successful. So then we came home we were up in Maine where they had a big 915 megahertz microwave source that we could use for these experiments. And it was all funded by the Air Force and everything. So we came home, and my my chief technician and safety guy. He was electrical and mechanical genius. He had built most of the experiment. He came home and he walked in the door in Maryland and said, "Hi, honey," he said to his wife, "I'm home." And she says, "Where the hell have you been?" And he said, "I've been in New Hampshire with Brandenburg, and the other guys. We were running the ball lightning experiments." And she says, "Why have you got a sunburn then?" And he realized he had this classic, mirror by the doorway entrance. So he looked in the mirror and his forehead was bright red, so were his cheeks. And so he immediately gets on the phone to me, and I had just walked into my apartment in Virginia, about 200 miles to the south, and I said, "Yeah, Vince, what is it?" And he says, "John, look at your face." So I went and looked at my face, and thank God we'd been wearing goggles. We were wearing
damaged
safety
your eyes.
We could have got cataracts immediately, but we had gotten a big dose of UV. So
it was like you were out on a glacier in full sunlight for 2 days
right.
straight, sort of thing, right? Like just straight burnt.
In all of my reports on this stuff, I said, if you, after a thunderstorm, you see what looks like ball lightning in your backyard, stay the hell away from it. It's probably charged to 1,000,000 volts for one thing, but it's putting out a lot of UV, probably even X-rays. And so
right? It's essentially a mini sun, right?
You got to treat the stuff with respect. What's that?
It's essentially like a mini sun sort of thing in that sustained form as it's active. So
yes,
I'll give you a little story of my dad and his actual experience with ball lightning when he was 6 years old. And that lightning struck the rail lines about, I guess, like about a half mile, or no, probably a quarter kilometer. So I guess like a 20th of a mile from his house, and a bunch of them formed. But one of them, it went across the ditch, across the highway, down my grandparents' driveway, and it went through the screen door, and then right as it got like in vision of my dad and a few feet away, it just went poof and went into nothing. And he said all he could smell was ozone everywhere. And it's like it went.
That's
like
right.
It just wild things of like how they act, what they can do, the anomalies, and that like it's just dissipated into nothing, didn't harm them as soon as it got close, turned into ozone, but like it got all the way from the rail line. It's just it's anomalous stuff, and I could only imagine making it.
Many stories like that, and the story I heard was that it came right through a pane of glass in the big living room window, right through the glass. Came into the room, went to a steam radiator, and then went bang like a firecracker. And
right,
this impressed this guy so much. This was he was like 11 years old, and he decided to become a plasma physicist when he got older. So he ended up working with me at Lawrence Livermore. So
That's amazing.
It's interesting stuff, but you got to respect it. You got to respect it.
Exactly, and it's how is this thing
not
that
nice
is like
to
as
fool with
hot
Mother
as the
Nature.
sun, right? It's natural, and how is something that's as hot as the sun being able to like go through metal, go through glass, and like not affected at all, and then either it decides to like react and go up or turn into nothing, and like it's a mystery of the universe that truly respects.
It's a mystery. I'm not embarrassed at all to say I don't know. I don't know why it can do that. It doesn't compute.
Well, with that, I'm gonna kind of bring this to a close tonight.
Oh, okay, Steve. Well, thank you so
conversation.
much, and Bernie. Thanks so much for getting involved in this discussion. Lots of
100%.
really interesting
We'll
stuff
have
on
to
the
do a
table.
follow-up interview. I'll get in contact with you, John, and talk some more
Okay.
and show stuff. Everyone
Okay.
needs to
Yeah.
come to Teslatech 2026 to see his presentations and my presentations and all the rest. It's the best.
Okay, and then
Well,
I want to
I
remind
hope.
everyone.
What
Go
I
ahead, John.
hope is by the time of next year at the presentations at the new Tesla Tech thing, that other people will show up with their own demonstrations of this effect. Maybe even better than mine. How about that?
Well, with that, we're going to call it a close. I'll remind everyone, if you're not a member, or subscribe to our Tesla channel. And we have videos, I believe, of both of you up online there. So become a subscriber, and hopefully you'll become an exclusive member of $9.99 a month, and it really helps us out and helps us move things forward. And thank you again. And I don't know when we'll do next Sunday yet. Like I say, we may be in the middle of a move, and I might not have the facility to do the show, but we'll work that out later on. So y'all have a great night, and I'll see y'all next week. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Pleasure and an honor.